started. I will share my screen, which is the PowerPoint show. You guys see the PowerPoint now with me in a little box? No? How about now? We should be good. Okay, let me see if I can, yep, I can fire that up too. Awesome. Okay, all right, so my name is Dana Brigman. I am a dog trainer with my business called the Canine Coach. The emphasis of my training is on behavior. I have, over the last couple of years, been really beginning to include many aspects of wellness into that, because we know that things like the nutrition that our dogs are getting or the emotional state that they have can be influenced by or can influence their behavior, is what I'm trying to say. So I have really sort of two parallel businesses running. One is the Canine Coach, and then the other is an essential oil and nutrition business for wellness. I have been doing dog training formally as a business for a little over 6 years now, but I was a foster since since 2001-ish. So over the last few years, I get the call when things go wrong, when they go really wrong. And one of the things that I wanted to set out to do this year is to help the people that are fostering dogs to hopefully make that simpler and to mitigate, maybe even prevent some of the issues that they are having. I see a lot of common themes. I see a lot of mislabeling aggression when it's not. I see a lot of people that don't know what to do with an over-aroused dog, and a lot of common mistakes. So I want to try to help get some of that clear for people, and to give you an opportunity. We'll talk at the end about an opportunity how I may be able to help you with consultations, talking a foster off the ledge if things are starting to go sideways. Couple of things that we won't dig into tonight in depth is my pack integration document, my new adopters guide, and my house training and crate training guide. They're super important. The pack integration I have been following for many, many years as a protocol of introduction of new dogs into my home and new dogs into the training program, and mixing and matching, other dogs as they come together. So download those, they're free. Share them with your adopters, put a link to them on your website. If you want me to co-brand them with your logo on it, just message me and we can talk about some options to do that. Where you'll find them, there's a link to everything from my website, caninecoach.dog. You get to everything from there, and I am trying to streamline things a little bit. But the guides and such, many of them are now moving out to an online training forum called Thinkific, so that people can have a flow. They don't have to watch everything in one sitting. They can sort of progress their way through modules. So it's super helpful in that format. Okay, so tonight we're going to be talking about getting our fosters set up for success, and the dogs coming in getting set up for success. But first, to anybody that's watching this that is a foster, we all need to say thank you. It's a very special thing that people do when they open their home and their heart and sometimes their wallet to these unknown dogs, right? And that's kind of the tricky part and where we're going to go into this conversation. We bring in dogs that ideally have been evaluated at the shelter, or there's been a discussion about an owner surrender, but really that animal coming into a new environment is unknown. There's a transition that happens that we don't know whether it's going to transition well or be a difficult transition. And I've seen it where dogs have done, really well in one foster home and really poorly the moment they get adopted or the moment they transition to a different foster home. We don't know where their threshold of tolerance is, or where their breaking point of yet one more transition, one more upheaval, one more layer of stress will break them. We don't know where that is. And so that's where we're going to be spending our conversations tonight. So I hear all the time when I speak to somebody on the phone who has run into one of these difficult situations, they'll say, I'm not a trainer. And that's wrong. Everybody that interacts with a dog is training that dog in some way. Now, you don't have to be a skilled obedience trainer, right? Or a trick trainer or any of that kind of stuff. You don't even have to be, exceptionally skilled in depth of behavior, because it's very complex. There's a lot of layers to it. But the minute you touch the leash, the minute you bring that dog into your home, and everything that you allow to happen or don't address is teaching that dog where his boundaries are or are not. If we show up as weak and permissive or inconsistent, then there are a lot of dogs that are going to take advantage of that. Dogs, many of them are opportunistic in their behavior. And if they find a hole, a place that they can get away with it, right? Or that they're not feeling confidently led, they will try to, in many cases, fill the role of the leader of that pack of family, right? And that includes the people and the kids and the animals in it, right? When we have a dog that is not skilled at that, trying to take those roles, then we often find ourselves in trouble. We also can find ourselves when a dog realizes he's got some power, realizes he has some gotcha moments. And what I mean by that is he knows where your gaps are and he will take advantage of them to his own benefit. Those dogs then start to create problems in our house. So we need confident leadership. We need clear expectations. Hey. We need consistency in how we communicate. And that's not just one leader in the family. If there's multiple family members, we all need to lead the same way. This is not about obedience. There is some obedience work that comes into this, but for the things we're talking about tonight, if you can teach place, watch me, maybe leave it, and implement some leash protocols and some feeding protocols, you're going to find yourself in a much stronger position as the leader and be able to mitigate issues before they ever occur. So it's very much about our energy and our expectations. Just another note here on that. I see people all the time who, when the situation feels uncomfortable or the dog's not listening, we get loud, we get big and animated. And what we really need to do is try to get as neutral as possible and as clear as possible. And so that comes with practice and experience and building our way through the introduction of that dog into the household. So if we open the door and say, welcome in, versus leading that dog in and setting some rules day one, we're opening ourselves up for trouble. So, a couple of things as we now really get serious about this conversation. This is not your dog, right? Some of us will foster fail, and I have done it many times, but we need to go into every foster arrangement realizing that that dog is not and will not be ours. That doesn't mean we don't love them, but the love we need to give is all that confident leadership I was talking about. They may never have had it, and dogs will absolutely thrive. They will respond very well when they find somebody that leads them effectively. So you need some rules of the house. And when you identify what those are for you, and every dog that comes in follows those rules, you'll find fostering a whole lot more easy, less frustrating for you. And when the surprise dog shows up, and he will, we're all going to run into that dog that we were not expecting to have and a behavior we never predicted. It's going to happen at some point if you foster long enough. But if you work through these issues or you work through these things that we're talking about, you will head them off at the pass. So things like the dog sleeping in his crate, the dog being allowed on the furniture, feeling like you have to take this dog to the same places at the same time you can't, with your dog, and not leaving him home alone because it doesn't feel right. Get over all of that, right? When I take my dogs out, so let me back this up. I take training dogs out quite a lot. We do a lot of socialization and a lot of going out to lunch and a lot of going to the park and all those things. All of that is training, every bit of it. When I want to spend time with my dogs, the fosters are not included in that. Fosters are not included to go down the hall to my bedroom and sleep there. The goal is we're transitioning these dogs pretty quickly, right? Now, some of us are going to get stuck, and that's where I think a lot of emotion comes in. And people are like, I don't know how to handle this dog. I don't have enough time. I don't have the patience, blah, blah, blah. And I'm doing the arm flailing because I can see people. That's my vision of people just getting really frustrated and fed up. And then that's when I get the phone call. And these rescue directors are saying, hey, Dana, we need a board and train. And I don't have an open space, right? I don't have an open space. And in fact, part of what I'm doing now is trying to scale back how many dogs I bring in for board and train. But most trainers, even where you have a large facility with a staff, there's a max number we can take at any given time. And so these emergency phone calls of we need a board and train like tomorrow morning is almost impossible. So I want to help you help the fosters, those of you who are fostering and those of you who are directors or board members. I want to help you learn better skills and ways to mitigate these things. So just please remember, it's not your dog. It's not a permanent member of your pack. It can have different rules than your pack members do. And the future adopter may not want the dog sleeping in the bed. So just don't even start that. Angela, can you mute yourself, please? Thank you. When we have a dog with a bad behavior, these attitudinal dogs or these bratty dogs who have found those opportunities, permission to be in the bed is no greater privilege for them. There's none. They've claimed the top of the pack, right? We need to knock that down a few notches. So don't even let it start. At some point in their future, dogs that are extremely well behaved might find themselves in the bed. but not when you're displaying any level of bad behavior and not when your behavior is unknown. Okay, so trainers, behaviorists, we will all tell you there is a generalized theory that we see transitions in the dog at 3 days, 3 weeks, and 3 months. It is not a mark on the calendar that says, whoops, there it is. It's somewhere in that general time frame. And most often, the biggest one I see is somewhere between that 3 weeks and 3 months. If you make it to 3 months, you're usually golden. But usually what happens is we bring the dog in and open it up and say, go play. And then either the dog comes in like a bat out of hell, right? And you go, oh, wait, now I need to deal with that. Or they come in very submissive, very subdued, some even shy and fearful, right? And we're uber soft, we're uber nurturing, and then they go, where are the gaps in the leadership? Who are these people? Where do I have opportunity? And they start taking advantage of it. All right. So your leadership completely matters. So I'll mention too, back to my blog, there's a whole category of topics called structure and leadership out on the blog site. If you're looking to up yours a little bit, figure out how to up the ante on that a little bit, go read some of those pieces of content. 90% of the time, that's where I find the gaps in the people who are calling me saying we're struggling. And when I can help them step into the leadership role a bit better with more confidence, it all gets better. So just keep your eyes on these transitionary periods. And remember that every transition we make, meaning every time the dog leaves the shelter and goes into a home, into a foster home to an adopter, or from a foster to a foster, this starts over. It resets. And as I said when I opened this call, we don't know where the dog's breaking point is. You need to think about this in your life, right? We can handle so much stress. And it's like, crap, I got to go through this again. I got to do this again. Who are these people? I don't trust you. Why am I here? I don't like that dog. I don't like that cat. Oh my God, there's a bird. I've never seen one before, right? Or it feels like the same type of transition to us, but to the dog, it's like, you've rejected me again. You've rejected me too. And I'm humanizing this term just a little bit, but we don't know where their threshold of tolerance will break. But at some point, it's very likely, unless the dog is just rock solid, bomb-proof, confident, happy-go-lucky, that could care less about where he lands, their emotions are going to get the best of them. Oops, going the wrong way. So when you bring the dog into your home, day one, he's on a leash. To me, this is not negotiable. I do this in my home and in the training room with every single dog. And it's for a couple of weeks. When we get them out of the crate, the slip lead goes on, they are escorted outside to the play yard or for a potty break or for training or whatever we're going to do. I assume that every dog that has come here will scale the fence. So for the first 48 hours, they are not allowed in the play yard off leash, period. Then they drag a long line around them. So if they do get interested in scaling the fence, I've got something that I can get a hold of, right? Even in my house, as I start introducing them into the living room, for example, they're on a slip lead. They are usually tethered to me. which means if I get up and go to the bathroom, or I get up and go to the kitchen, or I get up and go to the laundry room, they're moving with me. They're learning very quickly in that moment that I am who they need to follow. It's not going to be the other way around. It also helps me prevent if they get overly interested in one of the other dogs, that I can prevent them from lunging across the room or any of that kind of nonsense. There's an exercise that I do with every dog that walks through the door here, and it's called Sit on the Dog, or the long down, L-O-N-G, down, D-O-W-N. And you're teaching powerful things when you do this exercise, but it's very silent, it's very calm, it's very quiet, and so on. You can find the instructions for that on my blog site too. But the idea is you bring the dog in on a leash, you sit in your office or your favorite chair, and you sit on the leash. You're not actually sitting on the dog. But you sit on the leash, so your hands are free, and the dog then, most of them are going to protest a little bit. Some of them are going to be like overwhelmed with the fact that they are restrained. Some of them will bark at you, and you'll start to see demand barking straight out of the gate. Some of them are going to be real fidgety and be like very frustrated. So you're going to see a lot in that first exercise of what their behavior really is, right? If some of you are taking in known difficult dogs, then you may need to use a muzzle. But I've never had to do that with the dogs that I do this exercise with. You ignore them. No speaking to them, no trying to pet them. Let them get frustrated. Let them spin around at the end of the leash. The only option they have is to lay down and settle down. That is a big, big teaching moment for the dog that you have the ability to control them. Okay, so powerful exercise. Do leash work outside. I posted a very short video on my Facebook page today about how I start teaching a dog to walk on the leash. It's with a long line. It's not with a short leash. And it's basically anytime they move in front of you, you go the other direction. And you're putting them in a follow mode, right? Same thing in the house. You have them on a leash. If you go to the kitchen, they go with you. If you go to the bathroom, they're going with you. And you start working to have them understand you're supervising, you're calling the shots. And then also day one, I teach place. Every dog that walks through this house, walks through the kennel building, learns place the first day they're here. Place is a great way to keep a dog calm and under control. Many dogs will get frustrated with this exercise. And if you're picking up on things, I don't really care that they're frustrated. We're going to work through it. I've had dogs take as much as a couple of hours of sitting or standing on place, resisting the desire to lay down and to give up and just relax into it. They could step off the mat anytime they wanted to, but once they figure out you're going to put them back and that you've got some communication skills and some language with them, and mostly some energy with them, the fact that they are restrained under their own brain power and your energy blows their mind, right? They're like, I don't even know what to do with this. So they just get kind of frustrated and stuck in that moment. Let them learn to just relax and use that exercise of place for so many things. It then becomes the thing you use when the doorbell rings or when the kids are racing around the pool and you don't want the dog in the middle of all the arousal and all the activity that's going on. Use it while you're having dinner or game night or maybe while you're working another dog. Allow the distractions of family life to be part of his training of learning to just sit back and watch in a very relaxed state of mind. Powerful, powerful skill of teaching place. For those of you that may be queuing up any questions, I'm going to come to them at the end. So this is a big one, feeding protocols. Most people fill the dog's bowl, hand it to them, and call it good, right? Not me. Dogs that are here for training purposes rarely get a bowl of food. They get exercises where I use food to evaluate their arousal around food and to start teaching them to sit and to make eye contact. So I'll take their bowl and I'll put a few pieces of kibble in it, and we're going to do the exercise multiple times. It doesn't take them long to figure these games out, but this is the part of the mental stimulation that slows down their brain, helps them see you as a leader, and starts to really make the transition into your home very clear. And so when I walk up with a bowl of food for the dog, I'm first observing how excited are they around that food. Are they losing their mind? Are they jumping off the floor? Are they counter surfing? Any of those things, including like demand barking, trying to slap at the bowl, any of that will end their meal. They will not get dinner or breakfast in that time frame, right? And because I need them to learn they have a role to play in this. So I had a little pit bull years ago. Her name was Pinsy, and I called her Frenzy because she was kind of crazy about food. And the first day I turned around with the food bowl, she jumped up and slapped the whole bowl out of my hand, right? Now, granted, there was not a lot of food in it. She was on a leash. I escorted her across the room, tethered her. I have tethers in my house. Tethered her up, swept up the food, put it away, and then I took her and put her in her crate. She saw me with the act of taking her food away. The next day, same kind of thing, food gone. By the next evening, she's like, okay, I'll do anything. What do you want me to do? And so then we got to work. And the first exercise is you stand with that bowl, because we don't really know if the dog knows to sit or not. We might ask for it, but if he has never heard that word and doesn't understand that means put your butt on the ground, we may as well be speaking French, right? So the idea is we wait for him to sit, and as he sits, we name it, food bowl goes down. If his butt gets up, we say nope, and we wait for him to sit. We wait for eye contact, right? And so we're going to build our way through a feeding protocol of maybe 6 to 10 portions of his food to earn it. Okay, I have videos on all this stuff as well. What we're trying to start doing is getting him to wait on permission to take his bowl. We're getting him to figure out that permission comes when his hiney's on the ground, and we start to name that. We look for him to see our face, to focus on us and not the food. You'll see a lot of dogs that they're eyeballing the food no matter what you're doing. They're like, oh my God, food, 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 food. And you could be doing anything and they just can't find you. So this starts to work on impulse control. I'm a big fan of engagement games. Once I've started teaching a few skills, you will see me where we work through the kitchen or the kennel building, and I've got a dog doing sit, place, come, down, touch, lots of different things that once I'm teaching them, right, I will get that part of the feeding, and then they'll get a handful of food for whatever skill or series of skills I've asked them to do. Now the dog is engaging me. Food's coming from me. Food is not free. Food is being worked for. The dog's mind is working. The impulse control is getting under control. The mental stimulation of making this fun without so much excitement is a good thing. So look for ways to do that. I'm a huge fan of food puzzles. People tell me all the time they're in too much of a hurry. It takes 10 minutes, y'all, to do an engagement game. Doesn't have to take a ton of time. But food puzzles are pretty awesome. I put a Kong wobbler down for Raleigh last night. It's the first time I think she's had it. Because she just looked at me like, I don't know what to do with this. And, you know, a wobbler is if you bat it around, the little pieces fall out. She tried to pick it up. She tried to walk around with it. She had to figure out through some trial and error how to get the food out of the wobbler. So that exercise took her about 30 minutes of mental stimulation while I'm making dinner for myself. Okay? So there's a lot of ways, a lot of food puzzle games that can be beneficial. And then one of my big favorites is foraging, AKA feed the chickens. And I'll take food and just scatter it out across the patio, the pool deck, the grassy area, and let them go sniff around and look for it. For a scent hound or a dog that is a little bit, not completely shut down, but a dog that doesn't have a lot of confidence, this is a great exercise, right? Go find your food. Use your nose. Get into figuring out how to be a dog, right? It's a powerful exercise. I will also use feed the chickens with dogs that are just a little bit resource guarding. And I'll take them out on a leash. I'll know where the boundary is that my dogs, so I'll put food on one side of a boundary and I'll put food on this side, knowing how far the leash of the dog I'm holding can reach. And the act of eating together, right, and having the dog be able to get, my dogs be able to move out of that space and me control the leash is a good exercise for dogs that are not quite trusting of another dog eating around them, right? So we often, as fosters, want to just feed everybody in the crate. And I get it. I understand the safety protocol that is considered there, but you're not necessarily setting things up well to sort out how to solve these problems. I mentioned tethers. I'm a big fan of tethering. If you get a dog that you think has some resource guarding, especially against you, especially against the humans trying to feed them, you need to make a phone call. We'll help walk you through the progression of this. But I use tethers where the dog is tied back. He's on a leash that I'm not holding that is tied to a eye hook in the wall, right? He cannot pull it loose. And that gives me the opportunity to start working some exercises with them and maybe just dropping food into their space, knowing that if he loses it, he can't reach me, right? And so there's a whole protocol of resource guarding that I work through to teach dogs where their food comes from and how to out a bowl once we've put it down, how to out when somebody just walks up to step away from that bowl and say, okay, you can have it. No conflict, no drama, just you got to give up the bowl because a human approached. So we can help you with those sorts of things. All right. Don't go for a walk. I tell my clients this all the time. We struggle with trying to get a dog that's pulling like a freight train to walk beside us. And most people are trying to burn off energy by taking the dog for a walk. Don't go for a walk. Work in the driveway on a long leash with some exercises. Go to my blog, look for loose leash walking. It'll explain this in a little detail. There's videos somewhere as well But the idea is to get the dog to pay attention to you, to know that you're attached to the end of the leash, and that you will maybe find a reward hidden under a tree when he's not paying attention, right? When he sees you as the one to follow, as the one who's leading the hunt, then he's going to engage with you. He's going to walk along with you. And y'all, I have never had a dog take more than about 5 minutes until they were right by my side looking up at me going, where are we going? And that's what we're after. Once I can do that, then I can teach the dog to heel, right? But all this restraint we keep putting on the leash, all this trying to hold them back and I'm not going to remember the term for it. There's a term, opposition reflex. Have you ever watched military people or police people train dogs that are supposed to rush after the bad guy? What are they doing when they're holding that dog back, right? It's called agitation. They'll pull, and they're just pissing that dog off, right? And when they let him go, then the dog's crazy, like, ah, ready to go, right? Don't agitate the dog. I mean, it's actually a technique to what's happening in training. And then this whole opposition reflex is they learn what it feels like to push and pull through all of that power. And they just get used to walking that way. They think that's how it's supposed to go because you're tagging along behind them. When you go the other way, they're like, oh, wait a minute, somebody's there. Where are we going? Right? We can fix all of this fast. I promise. Okay. Crate separation or crate training and separation. Everybody needs to crate train. Everybody needs to crate train. And the dog needs to sleep in his crate. The dog needs to be in his crate while you are home in the first 3 days, maybe some during that first 3 weeks, especially, right? So the first 3 days the dog's here, he's either training with me, which is a little bit different for you guys, I get it, or he's in his crate. There are no exceptions. We go outside for potty, of course, but he's not free to mill around the house and to get up on the couch and to go, oh, what's in the trash? None of that happens. Getting them used to being in the crate as quiet time is a good thing. Even if we've just pulled them from the shelter and they think, or you think rather, that, man, he's been cooped up. I want to let him stretch his legs and give him some free time. And, oh, poor baby, he's been in the shelter for who knows how long, right? We got to get over those emotions ourselves. And we got to do what's going to set him up to be well-mannered in our homes and well-mannered in his future home and to get there faster, right? We don't want to get stuck with these dogs, but it's the things we're doing early on that bring us to these, oh my God, I wasn't prepared for that type of behavior. That if like I said, we can do all these things and get it much better balanced. Separation stress is a big one. I am a huge fan of essential oils. I'm not going to discuss those here, but I will tell you, I do have a video presentation about essential oils and emotions for our dogs, including traumas and all sorts of emotional stuff, right? But essential oils are super, super helpful to bring in day one to what your house smells like, feels like, the energetics of it, the calmness of it, the calmness of you and your pack. Bringing a dog into a calm pack is a big deal. If your pack is not one that can get calm quickly, if they're contributing to the arousal, then we are most likely to have a conflict. 2 aroused dogs or 2 fearful dogs, or an aroused and a fearful, or an aroused and an insecure, are not going to mesh well. That's why we slow all this stuff down. Oh, thank you for your bone. But separation anxiety is a big, big deal. Nobody wants it. I don't like it. I don't like when dogs come here with separation anxiety. Nobody wants to adopt it, and then you're going to wind up feeling stuck, right? So if we can, for these dogs, absolute essential oils, we need to look at nutrition. This is and I get it's a challenge for some rescue groups, but we have to look at these cases in the exact same way we look at a dog with a broken leg. There's a medical issue associated with this. It just happens to be emotional, not physical, although there may be some physical element to it that we have to address. And then there is a training protocol. You can download the guide, the exact same steps I follow, and start working through separation anxiety. But if you start day one with the crate training and the protocol of bringing him in calmly, you are much less likely to see it happen in the coming weeks. Excuse me. There's a dog under me chewing on a bone. So arousal is the enemy, and it's super, super common. And we look at arousal sometimes and we say aggression, right? And it's not. It is sometimes the dog that is so excited over their food or happy to see anybody that they're just jumping and a little bit out of control. The earlier exercises we talked about, like sit on the dog and place, very helpful. The crate training, very helpful. But then you find these dogs with craziness. I mean, just way over the top, not a normal level of arousal over their food. You'll find it early if you follow the food protocols. Don't start gameplay day 1, 2, or 3, maybe not even until like week 2 or 3, right? Gameplay turns some dogs on. And I had a classic example of it just this past week where some folks from the rescue brought a pit bull, super sweet dog, super sweet dog. We pulled out the tug game and you saw the light turn on in that dog and he's like, it's on. He was not aggressive, but he could have been perceived to be aggressive. Or had there been a child playing tug with him or somebody not skilled enough to know what to do with that arousal he had, it could have been a whole different situation, right? So he's not ready for tug games. I'm a big fan of tug games, but he isn't ready because he doesn't have the foundation of rules in place and seeing me as a leader and learning out to play that game yet. But imagine if it had been aggression, right? So this is part of the eval, right? I don't encourage you guys to set out and do some of this stuff right away, but I was evaluating this dog to see where we were. And we certainly found over arousal. We had seen it in other stuff, but we saw huge arousal when the tug game came out, right? So you gotta know going into a game that you're going to play like that, what the possibilities are, and be prepared when it happens, because at some point you're going to get the dog that it happens. What do? How do you manage it, right? I'll go back to the food for just a second. Wallace, some of you may have seen him on my Facebook page. Love little Wallace, but food lights him up, right? He will his butt wiggles and his feet tap dance, and he's trying so hard to be still, right? He's trying so hard to be still, but he's just like, oh my God, I'm so excited. And so one of the exercises we work with him on now is he has to be still, right? He has to be still. And so he'll get his body still and the tail still going. And we wait for that tail to stop just long enough to go good. And then he gets a handful of food and we rinse and repeat. It's the repetition that's going to help tone that down. The state of mind work, all this stuff that we're talking about, structure, leadership, consistency, place commands, sit on the dog, impulse control. All of this changes the state of mind that pulls arousal down a few notches. Listen, the average adopter does not want an over-aroused dog. It's hard to manage, right? But if you start early, you can get some of those things under control, right? And for those of you with big dogs, those of you with not these cute little fluffies, but look at the Rottie or the Dobies or the Shepherds or the Pit Bulls or the whatevers, right? These bigger dogs, when you find arousal in that dog in a gameplay that you weren't prepared for, oh, it's like, what do I do now? Right? How do I end this without it getting to be too much? And so imagine that we haven't identified that before we send them to a home with kids or babies or whatever. The guy called me yesterday. They are very concerned about their dog and its prey drive. It's probably a dog that they can't keep, right? But then you look and say, well, who wants this dog? And so when I work with dogs that have high prey drive, we have to create an on-off switch. We have to find an outlet for it, something that fulfills the instinct of the breed, right? And then we have an off switch that says, now's not the time. And you can do that. You can do that and get these dogs in a really good headspace. I get a lot of calls where people are worried about, oh my God, this dog is aggressive. Most of them are not. That's the good news, right? It is still a lot to handle for the average foster. So my hope is to help the board members and some advanced fosters get a little more skilled with some of this stuff, because like I said, we can't always go, hey Dana, I need a board and train like this afternoon. I'm going to be like, that can't happen. I can't pull that off. What I need to be able to do is talk about how the evaluations go, the training goes, and the protocols that get put into place in the home, the safety management, muzzle conditioning, the tethers that we talked about, and really starting to help people work through these issues. Sure, there are some dogs that we get caught by surprise and we find an aggressive behavior in. Aggressive behavior is still very scary, but it doesn't mean we have a bad dog. It means in some cases that we have a dog that has never been taught a different way, right? And so we have to figure out how to work through that. But you need some safety protocols in place if you're doing fosters on any scale, especially if you have multiples. It's things like heavy duty crate, maybe. It's things like a carabiner on the crate doors. It's 2 degrees of separation when you're not able to supervise. There are tethers in your yard tied to the fence at all times, so that if you have to separate a dog fight, and I hope you never do, but you can get one dog secured while you're moving the other one away, right? There's a way to break up a dog fight that is most effective. And if you've got 2 of them and you're standing there with 2 power horses, right? What do you do with them? You gotta have some security setups in your yard and maybe in your house. And then you need some slip leads. If I'm outside with dogs, I generally always have a slip lead hanging on the fence post or the side of the building, so that if there is something going on, I can grab it and go and do what I need to do to get those dogs apart. Okay. I guess I just sort of covered that. Don't be afraid to muzzle up a dog. Don't be afraid to muzzle condition the dog. I think we're almost done. We're in the home stretch. I'm getting winded. Couple things that so you'll see in the PAC integration document or the new adopters guide that it suggests You don't have visitors over. You don't take these big crazy outings right away. In the foster environment, we're trying to get them adopted as fast as we can, right? So a lot of people will pull a dog and want them at the event the next weekend. This is Dana Brigman's opinion. Your board of directors may disagree with me, but it is my recommendation to all of you that your first outing to an event does not happen for a couple of weeks, and that the first outing you have with that dog is never to an event. The first outing needs to be to Lowe's, where there are no other dogs, right? So that we can see how the dog starts to respond to new environments, to sights and sounds they've never heard, to being in the lumber department where the little machine's going beep, 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 beep as it backs up. Most of these dogs have never been in environments like that. We need to assume they've never been to those environments, that everywhere we take them will be the first experience of their life in that environment. You will learn so much about the dog's behavior. Watch for them to get fixated on the man with the hat. Watch for them to go, oh my God, I can't cope with that. Watch for their eyes and the flues of their mouth to light up blood red with stress. When you see those things, you now have a clue of something you need to work on. It might be repetition. It might be essential oils. It might be a whole bunch of things. But you don't want that to be the first thing you do in an event and go, now what? Oh my God, he's blown up. He's lost it. And there's no recovery from that right away. Right? Especially the people that are looking at him going, I don't want to adopt that dog. Right? So slow things down. Go to different places. Go to PetSmart on Tuesday night. I go on Tuesday mornings with the dogs that I have here for training. And I say that kind of half jokingly, but there's nobody in PetSmart on Tuesday morning. And so I go. And so we get an opportunity to experience the environment before it's filled with people and dogs and lots of other activity. So there's an imprint that happens to the environment that is less arousing, less escalated than if it were full of people. And remember, when you take a dog out anywhere, the dog at the end of your leash is in training at all times, and our priority is the care and well-being of that dog. We have to keep eyeballs out for the people around us who may not be paying attention, who may not try to give us space, who may allow their kid, their dog, their grandma to rush up and try to manhandle the dog that stands before you. It's bad news, right? If we don't know that they can handle the situation and how they've started to be introduced to maybe other people in your foster program or other dogs in your foster program, they're probably not ready for that in these big, crazy Saturday morning events at some of these pet stores. That's just my opinion. When we have a potential adopter, we need to look at this as a courtship, especially with the dogs where we have started to identify some arousal issues or some these opportunistic dogs that are like, I got your number, right? Slow it all down just a little bit and have a couple of dates, right? Teach the adopters to not come in going, oh my God, I'm so excited. Oh, puppy, right? We don't like that when it happens to us. We don't like it. I don't like it when it happens to my dogs. And they're kind of bulletproof, right? That's not fair to the dog. So go for a walk. Meet at the park and go for a walk. Sit out on the back patio for a few minutes, whatever, and allow the dog to have some time to settle in, get acquainted. Give him the choice in every situation to decide that he's going to greet by, I call it say hi. I actually teach the dog to say hi. And if he chooses not to, if he says, no, I'm good, I don't want to do that, right? He turns his back. He just says, no, I'm okay. then we need to understand from that dog, there is an energy reading that he's getting from the people that are trying to approach him that he's not comfortable with. And that happens with people and with other dogs. We need to slow all this stuff down. So Poppy, my pit bull, she is a master of knowing the dogs that she can approach and the dogs she can play with, and the dogs she's like, I'm good. I want no part of it. And so I've learned to 100% trust her. If you've got an unknown dog who's having his first experience at an event or is his first experience meeting a visitor, we don't know how he's going to respond yet. So we have to work through those situations. And then I suggest let the adults meet the dog first, right? See how all that goes. And then bring the kids and or other dogs to a second greeting. Kids and dogs are very different than adults. And we don't want all that disappointment and all that conflict and all that whatever's potential if we can control and manage it. So if we can get the dog comfortable with the potential adults, and then that's one layer of familiarity now that they're comfortable with, and then we go and we add in some more pieces, then I think we have a better shot. And I keep things really slow. I never open a gate and say, go play with the other dog. We go for a walk. We hang out for a little while. We teach to say hi. And we start working our way to decide if they're going to be compatible or not. Stop. So you're going to do some of this. Hopefully all of you will do more of this. And you're still going to find times where it goes south. And so when that happens, consult early, right? Don't wait 3 weeks until the foster is desperate and says the dog's got to go in the morning. That doesn't help anybody. Shh, I'm not playing with you right now. So make a phone call. Like an incident happens today, make a phone call tomorrow that says, what do we do, right? Invite me into your foster group to have a discussion about it. Stop. This is the man barking, so I'm going to start. You're losing your toy, and you're not going to bark at me. I don't even know where I was. Oh, invite me in, have a conversation, invite another trainer. Just get help from somewhere as early as possible so that the techniques and protocols and safety measures can all start being put in place. These issues are usually much easier resolved if we catch them early versus letting the dog practice them for a couple of weeks, right? Or if we're not getting ourselves into a situation where our own emotion and fear and, where our own energy has gotten kind of to the point of no return, right? I get it. Most fosters are like, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up for this. And so if you get into that situation, it's super hard to fix the gut, to fix the emotion, and to put in the work, right? I'm saying put in some of the basics, and it doesn't have to be crazy time consuming. None of what I mentioned to you all, except maybe teaching plays, is more than about 10 minutes at a time. And even with place, once you teach that, the dog's on place and you're making dinner or on a computer or reading a book, right? The dog is working while you're not actively focused. You can see him out of the corner of your eye. You can manage the correction when you need to, but you're not having to just sit there and go, how long's he been there? You know what I mean? If you want more information on essential oils and nutrition, I'll help you. I am going to bring up essential oils and nutrition with every single behavior case you bring my way because they are tightly integrated. And then I am happy to come do some workshops for your foster groups where we do like a a half day or an evening, hands-on, let's work some dogs and improve some basic handling skills. All right, I'm going to stop the sharing of my screen and I'm going to stop the recording.